Come on in, welcome to my home. Today's book review is Women of the Guild by Darleen Innis. So grab yourself a cocktail, we'll talk about this in a second. Sit back and relax and enjoy this book review of this book. I will tell you right now, there are no spoilers because, well, I want you to read the book. The book takes place in Athens, Ohio. I know a little bit about Athens, Ohio because I live close to Athens, Ohio, and I even know a little bit about the events that happen in this book because I lived through those events. However, that being said, this book really isn't about those events. This book is about the relationships between women and the relationships that build and form the bit of trust, the bit of understanding. It is a book which is totally about how the bonds between women survive and how they work. It is a very interesting book, and it takes place with a group of people who are initially the Tea Basket Quilters Guild. Well, tea basket quilters. The main cast of characters are, you'll have to forgive me if I mispronounce names, Nora Radner. Nora is 90 years old. She's a member of the Tea Basket Quilters. She's a fun woman. Then we have Evelyn North. Evelyn North, I will tell you right now, turns out to be our, for lack of better word, our main villain. I don't think villain is the right word because it's all about understanding why people do what they do and how they do it. And that's sort of interesting. Well, it's not just sort of interesting, it really is interesting. Then we have Rosie Dreyer. She's a real estate agent. She's a very smooth talker. She can get you to do just about anything. Carolyn Ashcroft. She is married to Dr. Ashcroft. She's another one of our big characters. Phoebe Prescott, who I personally think is the main protagonist in this, but it takes place within a point of view does shift, and it shifts a lot, but it shifts smoothly and seamlessly. We have Lois Cadwell, who Lois, by the way, is the secretary at the fairgrounds. Simone LeBlanc. Mimi, I think her name is Mimi Ling. Belle Hart, Vern Hart, who's Belle's husband. Avery Underwood. And Athens really does take a big part of this. Now, here's what's interesting about this. All of these characters are part of this Quilters Guild, and the whole goal of the Quilters Guild right now is to win a quilting machine. In fact, the very machine, I'm going to look at my notes again. The very machine is the Gamble. They don't say exactly which one, but it is a really super expensive big arm quilting machine, where if you know anything about quilting, you know that having a quilting machine is really cool, because there's nothing like quilting. If you know anything about quilting, putting pieces of things together to form a finished product, and that's sort of what this whole group of people do. They all come together and they form pieces of this big quilt of friendship and of understanding and of learning, and all the pieces come together and they fit into places and they help each other, they accentuate each other, they bring great understanding. And it's really nice to piece these things together, but to do the finished quilt, and if you've ever done any quilting, you will know that to do the finished quilt, you need a big arm quilting machine to quilt those quilts. It can be kind of hard to do this by hand. They have done this by hand before, but having the quilting machine would then be a great way to then take care of all that. Now, the Tea Basket Quilters, they meet in a building, which is an actual building. This is the building which I'm guessing is what is referenced. It is in the spot where it should be at in the book, and it has the very things that they talk about, the garage with it, the big windows, and this is what is their quilters' headquarters. It is really nice to have places that have an actual place. Does that make sense? Following these characters and what they do and where they go and how they do it and why they do it is absolutely fascinating because as I was reading this, it's like I had met every single one of these people. It was like going back to meet friends or people who I knew, and I don't think that any of these people were based off of any one person. I think that they were a combination of multiple people, multiple things, multiple events. But to have it in a real setting about something which I do know something about, because for 5 years, I worked in a fabric store. And for 3 of those years, I was the assistant manager of a fabric store. So believe me, I met a lot of quilters in my life. And all of these quilters have their stories. And what I think is interesting about all of these women and how they deal with each other is each woman tries to help the other. The characters who are seen more of our heroes, more of the people who I personally cared about more, they were the ones who wanted to share, who wanted to help, who wanted to build each other up, and they were in it for the greater good. And that was one of the things which you will notice in this book, is that there's a lot of working together, seeing how that they can do things, and there is no one person who decides, I'm in charge, I should be the person who should be in charge. However, there are characters like Evelyn who wants to be in charge. Now, a lot of these characters do have the aspiration to be one of the officers of the Quilters Guild, and that's understandable. Everybody can understand wanting to be an officer. But these women come together in very neat ways, sharing the information that they have, sharing everything from food and produce to how they live. And there's very, very little judgment among people who would be considered more of our heroes. More judgment comes from the people who are the people who would be considered our antagonist. And our antagonist, she wants to win the quilting machine by having a raffle. Okay, I know this might not make a whole lot of sense, but if you know anything about quilters, quilting auctions, there are a couple of people. There are people who do a quilting auction. A quilting auction is you have a quilt, or several quilts, and then you auction it off to the highest bidder. A quilt raffle is people buy chances on a quilt, and then whoever wins the quilt after it's drawn wins the quilt. And now the whole big thing is they can win the quilting machine if they raise enough money for a fundraiser. The fundraiser is for a quilt shop that is then going to give away this quilting machine. And if whatever group raises the most money will win the quilting machine. And all of our characters really sort of want to win it. All of our characters really want to win it more for helping each other, more for sharing their own individual stories, their own individual lives, more for coming together as a group. Women helping women, and it's really great. However, that's also not just the backbone of the story, because like I said, there is a major catastrophic event which changes the whole direction of the book, and that major catastrophic event did actually happen. In fact, it actually happened in the summer of 2012, between June 29th and June 30th. You're probably wondering, well, what's a catastrophic event? But if I told you, then you might not. It's so catastrophic and so changes the course of this book that each woman sort of shows her best side. Each woman has a chance to go from, we're all working in our own individual things, to coming together as a group to help the group. Now, our villainess, as you might want to call her, she has used tactics of manipulation, bribery, and also straight out blackmail to make it so that she and her new quilting group, because yes, when Evelyn decided she wanted to become the person who will win this quilting machine, our villainess, she starts her own quilting guild, brand new. And her quilting guild, she wants to do the quilt raffle. Whereas the other quilters have decided they're going to do a quilt auction. This, around this area, and if you know anything about quilters, makes total and complete sense. And so as she's used her manipulation, as she's used her blackmail, you suddenly realize that, this isn't what all of this has always been about. Everybody had come together. They'd come together to help each other. They'd come together in ways that, they no longer have to be put down. This is a very diverse group of people, and that's the other thing about this. If you know anything about Athens, Ohio, Athens is a very diverse place. It's even said in the book, it's one of the more liberal areas in this sea of non-liberal area in the county. It is one of the places where diversity is embraced and raised up. However, our villainess seems to not like diversity all that much. And that's its own problem. I mean, that's one of the things that people have to learn how to embrace. They need to embrace differences, embrace things that that could separate us, but no, they bring us together. We can learn from everybody's difference. We can learn from everybody's knowledge, everybody's whatever they can do the best. We'll learn from that. And that's what I think this book points out the most, and what quilters seem to point out the most, is that you can learn so much by sharing. And this book shows you this in a wonderful way, and it also shows you that even when the chips are down and everything is at its worst, most people want to rise up and still help, even those who have oppressed them, even those who have made their life horrible. They're still going to do the right thing and raise them up and help them however they can and come together to do good things. And that can even shock the people who have all along done nothing but be bad. Now, what I liked about this is the fact that we have a villain who is a villain without being a horrible person. All of these people have backstories. Evelyn, Nora, Belle, everyone has a backstory. And all of these backstories come together to create realistic characters. Come together to create characters who you're going to care about. Come together to move the story along. And I like that, the fact that the backstory is important. Just like a lovely Bloody Mary. This Bloody Mary recipe I got off the internet, and this is how to make it. If you want to make your own Bloody Mary recipe, just follow the link down below in the description. Let's have a taste. It's actually kind of good. So, the thing about quilters is they'll share. And the sharing of this group, no matter what happens, no matter how little they think that they're sharing or how much that they're sharing, they're still going to share, they're still going to work together, they're still going to come together as a team. And even no matter how things fall, they're going to try. I mean, what's going to happen? Will our tea basket quilters win the quilting machine, or will Evelyn's group win the quilting machine? Will the art auction, will the quilt auction win, or will the quilt raffle win? Or will something completely different happen? This book takes you on a roller coaster of understanding, of learning about people's history, of learning about places, and I want to tell you, each place exists. Everything from the secretary's office at the fairgrounds, the library, and like I showed you, the quilt shop. The other thing about this is I think I even found out where our characters sort of lived. There are places where it just takes place. It just makes sense. This is an exciting book because it shows you how important relationships are. It shows you how important understanding of different people, understanding of different ways of doing things, and learning about it, learning to piece it together, learning to incorporate it into your own life, building that quilt of life comes together. The Women of the Guild is one of those books where I think you're going to enjoy it. I think you will look back at it and say, I'm glad that I read it. I'm glad that I have more of an understanding, and wow, didn't see that one coming, even though it is hinted at through the entire story. And once I put together when this actually happened, I was like, oh yeah, I remember this. I remember the catastrophic event that happens in this book. And I do remember how it changed lives, how it changed everything in this area, and how it did draw some people together, and how it pulled some people apart. But this book is one of those things where it's going to show you that there are good people. Good people do good things in good ways. I would recommend reading this. I think you're going to like this. I hope you enjoyed this, and like I said, there are no spoilers in this. This is a book that I suggest that you read. Now, if you're interested in learning more about things like the cocktail, check down below in the description. Also, I'd like to take this time to thank these people who I can recommend books to. These are my members and my Patreon people. They help keep this channel going, and we talk about things like this. And it's one of those things where there are all sorts of people who have lots of knowledge, and there's lots of knowledge to share. It's a great place to share your knowledge and to learn from others. So if you want to become part of that group, go ahead and click that button. It will take you to Patreon. You'll get these videos early, and you'll also get a behind-the-scenes video of what goes on in my life, and you can see what I'm up to. I hope you enjoyed this, and let me know down in the comments what you're reading.